Kevin, we're going to talk about the Future Home Standard. And as you know, we work with many different government departments and they work in very different ways. But in this particular case, the government actually came to us and asked us for information about what they were planning to do around the Future Home Standard. Are you able to tell us where you think we are with the standard at the moment, what might be in it, and the contribution that the GGF has made to that process?
Yeah, so in terms of where we are with the Future Home Standard, the consultation is finished, all the responses are in, and we're waiting for the publication of the document essentially. There's been some delays around that, various changes at government level that haven't helped that. We were expecting it end of the autumn, early winter last year, but it's looking like sort of any day now. We're in early February at the moment, so any day now we're expecting it, certainly by the end of February. I'd be very surprised if we haven't seen it by then. And what does it mean? It's huge changes in terms of calculation methods. And I think something that very early on, I don't think government realised quite so much was just the impact that that would have. Given how we calculate at the moment with the standard size and style, which then covers the range of products, you know, this is a very specific calculation for each and every window and door. And something that also became apparent early on was we don't include a lot of the ancillary items at the moment, all within the rules that we've got in BS EN 10077, but government are looking for a much more accurate data set, and that's what this whole thing is about, and more accuracy in the U values that we're using. So that does mean we've got to calculate all these other items. And one of the requests from government from us was, how do we put that into the document? So we have written a page for approved document out, which we're hoping will be included, which lays this out for industry, exactly what the change is, what needs to be included, and what doesn't need to be included. And then behind that, the consultation response group at the GGF with its members are working on a support document which fleshes that out even more. So hopefully with that in place, there'll be no ambiguity over what should be included and what shouldn't be included, and importantly, exactly what the change is.
Thanks, Kevin. As part of that sort of consultation that we did with industry, I remember sitting in various meetings where you were saying we're looking at different facets of a window and what should and shouldn't be included. So in terms of the calculation that's being proposed, that's going to be headers, sills, what other aspects?
Yeah, so essentially, if it's in the aperture of the building, it really needs to be included in the U-value calculation. So the support document that we've created with our members shows different sills, different add-ons, knock-ons. You have to include dummy sashes, dummy transom, and if you've got a scenario where you're using a large head frame to, for example, if you need to put trickle vents to it, then you need to calculate the window with the large head frame. So every single aspect of that window needs to be included. And also things that are inside the glass, so Georgian bars, duplex bars, stick-on bars, all of that needs to be encountered into the calculation now. Whereas historically, we haven't had to do all of that. You know, it was a standard window, it was a one-size-fits-all approach in a way, but now that has to change. You know, so much more accuracy.
And there's much talk of the home energy model, and that this is going to be the way that calculations are then put forward to get the area weighted average for a property. We're obviously engaging with new build developers around this as well to get their views. How have we done that as GGF? I know we've got a new build group, but how has the dialogue been with them, and what sort of questions are they asking of us?
Yeah, so we've engaged with house builders at several different levels as individuals. So we've created dialogue with some of the house builders such as Barrett's and Persimmon Homes particularly, and had some really good engaging conversations with those guys. And the question that they're asking us is, what difference is this going to make to us? And you know, and it is a big difference, and they have to consider things that they haven't perhaps had to consider in the past. Another way that we've been engaging with the house builders is with the Home Builders Federation. And so a lot of the national house builders and a lot of SME house builders are included in that federation. So we've attended a couple of their meetings and we've gone through some of the implications, and we've taken questions from them, which has in turn formed some of the work that we've done from that point onward. Now, something that house builders need to consider now more so than ever is the design of the windows. So historically, when we're on the standard calculation, one-size-fits-all model, they haven't had to worry about having dummy sashes or dummy transoms or any of that kind of things in the window design. But that does matter now, because that will impact the U value. So the likelihood is, the more complicated, it's a general rule of thumb, but in likelihood, the more complicated the framing design, the more likely it is to need triple glazing to hit those U values of 1.2, 1.3.
Big implications then potentially again for our industry. We were talking earlier about the potential for Part Q, but on top of that, for new build, there will be new calculation requirements. This has never been seen before, has it? So how is our industry going to approach this if it actually happens, is published, and the information is in there, which we're expecting?
Yeah, it's a big challenges across the supply chain. Very complex, and they are going to affect everybody across the supply chain. But I think fabricators are looking towards the system designers for assistance with this. So a lot of the system houses that are in GGF membership, both PVC and aluminium system houses, they are working towards some form of solution. Different solutions are being looked at, some tabulated spreadsheets which would have fields that you would complete as a fabricator to get your U values. Others are looking at much more complicated and more advanced calculation software tools. And I think the holy grail is that you end up with a software calculation tool that will talk to your processing software, because these U values need to be determined at the point of quotation, because it's no good quoting a double glazed job if it ends up needing to be triple glazed, because the cost implications of that are huge across a whole site potentially. So, you know, we are working with these system houses, and we have a system house group and we have an aluminium group, and they are being quite open with each other as well. So collectively as an industry, we're trying to tackle this issue, and I'm confident that we will get there. You know, the aluminium sector's probably got a head start in this, because there are some aluminium systems that have very, very good comprehensive calculators already, because some areas of the commercial market already require it. So it's not that it's never been done, it's just not been done in this sector before, and so it's a massive change, certainly for the PVC guys, but they're rising to the challenge, and I think, you know, collectively with our assistance in terms of bringing them together, that we will get there.
Once that piece of work had been concluded, Kevin, I remember you and I went down to Canary Wharf and we met with the building safety regulator, who'd commissioned us to look at various aspects of the calculation methodology. They were very pleased with the presentation that we'd given them, but we have no indication of whether that work will be included or not. Whilst we wait with bated breath, what should our industry be doing at the moment in preparedness for a change which we think is going to come?
Yeah, it's always difficult, and as an industry we learnt the hard way. You know, if you remember a few years ago, before the consultation launched, all of the talk was around a fabric first approach, 0.8 U values, and we were being told by government, absolutely, this is what's coming. And then obviously a bit of a U-turn, dare I say it, into a more accurate model, because the modelling that government did showed that actually 1.2 is good enough if it actually is 1.2. And that's where this change of method of calculation is coming. It's the accuracy of the result which is the key part of all of this. And so, you know, those changes are a challenge, and without seeing the published document, it's difficult because it's going to take time to get there. So it's, you know, it's almost a chicken and egg. Do you wait for the published and then you've got to race to the finish, or do you just go ahead and assume that it's coming and end up with it in time? So it's a challenge, it's difficult. I think industry is moving ahead. You know, they're not standing still on this one. I think the driving factor for me for all of this is the home energy model. We know that is coming. We're talking to people who are writing it and updating it as we speak. So that is coming, and that demands this U value change. So I'm confident that U value change will come. It's just really, we're just waiting for it to come.
There's been a lot of talk about the new requirements requiring triple glazing throughout. But I guess what we need to achieve is this area weighted average across all of the windows and doors within a building, and then the building itself. So I guess this means that there could be a mix of double glazed and triple glazed windows potentially within a new build property. What issues does that have for our industry? A mix of different types of windows, styles, and glazing systems.
Yeah, so that is a challenge, and you know, there's been a lot of talk within the industry around everything being triple glazing, and you know, I have to say that absolutely is not the case. Not all builds will require triple glazing, but as you say, some will, and some will only need it in certain windows, and so that's a complexity that I think is going to be a huge challenge. It's a complexity in fabrication, because as jobs go through, as fabricators will tell you, you know, they go through in plots so that they're all kept together. They will hit the bead table and the glazing rigs in plots. And if you've got to suddenly know that you need a 36mm bead in that one but a 28mm bead in that one for the double triple glazing, it adds an extra area for error and complication. And so that can be a challenge, and that's, you know, that is going to be difficult. Also, from a homeowner and a builder perspective, are you going to want some windows triple, some windows double, potentially in the same room. Because there is a visual difference. You know, it is slightly different, and the reflections are different, the tint is slightly different. And so there's a piece around there that if you've got some that need to be triple, some double, a decision I think needs to be made by the house builder. Do they want it all to just revert to triple? Obviously there's a cost implication to that and a manufacturing implication to it, but it's a decision that needs to be made.
Thanks, Kevin. We've talked about the home energy model, but currently we're using SAP. Can you foresee a situation where the future home standard comes in and SAP and HEM are there together and there's a coexistence period where you could calculate to either model? And again, what sort of implications does that have for our supply chain?
Yeah, so absolutely. It's been confirmed already that there is going to be a coexistence period between SAP and the HEM model. And I think that's because the HEM model is behind where they wanted it to be. It's not finished yet, and we were expecting it to be complete and launched. So there is going to be a coexistence period. We're being told initially that's going to run for 12 months. We don't have the detail, all of the detail around the new SAP, because SAP is going to be updated to run alongside the HEM model. What we don't know is if the update in SAP is going to include the requirement for an area weighted average of all the windows, which would still include that new method of calculation for every size and style. If that is there, I don't foresee much of a difference between the two, but we won't know until we see it. However, if the SAP model isn't updated to include that difference, then yeah, a huge disparity between the two, and you know, it would be, from a manufacturing and cost perspective, more favourable to use an updated SAP than the new HEM model. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
So it really is a case of watch this space. This could land any day. We're waiting to find out ourselves. But when it does, one of the first things that will happen is that Kevin and his team will lock themselves away in a room and they'll be reading this to make sure that we can then provide webinars and information back to GGF members so they're informed of what's actually in the final document and really how it affects them. But talking of effects, Kevin, I guess something else which will be on everyone's mind is the transition. Transitioning from one calculation method to another, but also the planning regulations, the durations involved. I can see that, you know, we're going to need quite some period of time, aren't we, before finally the future home standard and the HEM model will finally hit, based on, well, look around the volume of windows and doors being produced today. What are your thoughts on a transition? Can you see it being 2, 3, 5 years? What's reasonable?
So I think what we would like and what we'll get aren't necessarily the same thing. You know, obviously as industry we want as much time as possible so that we can get the systems and software in place. Manufacturers have time to get accreditations in place where they need to, and you know, a smooth transition. I don't think we're going to get that. I think what government are looking at is a 12-month laying date. So that's a period of time from when the document is published before an official transition starts. So we are expecting 12 months. Within the consultation there were two options, 6 or 12 months, and we are expecting the longer. And at that point the transition itself starts, and we are expecting that to be 12 months as well. So essentially from date of publication, probably 2 years is absolute end of transition period. In real terms, fabricators and installers are going to need to be ready for this before that time period is up. Because as we said in different conversations, you're going to need this in place for when you're quoting that work. Because you can't quote the work until you know the specification. You can't know the specification until you've had a U-value calculation. So, and we know from previous that people are quoting some of these larger new build phases maybe 12 months before it starts. So even though when that starts in 12 months time it's going to need to comply with the new regs, you're going to need to be quoting it much more before. So you could be quoting that during the laying date period. So, you know, our message to fabricators and installers and system designers is don't wait for this. You know, if this comes, you need to be ready very soon after to be preparing quotation so that you can win the work.